Hello, I'm pleased to present our research titled Strong Sustainability Paradigm in TOPSIS, a new approach to wind farm selection. This work is a collaboration between researchers from the West Pomeranian University of Technology and the University of Szczecin. We focus on improving sustainability decision-making, especially when selecting renewable energy projects. In this talk, I'll walk you through a new method we developed, STOPSIS, that addresses limitations in classic decision-making frameworks. Using offshore wind farm selection as a case study, here's a brief roadmap of the presentation. First, I'll introduce the background and motivation behind our work. Then we'll look at the limitations of current decision-making tools like TOPSIS. Next, I'll explain our proposed method, STOPSIS, and how it works. I'll then share the results of our empirical study on offshore wind projects in the Baltic Sea. Finally, I'll summarize key findings and suggest directions for future research. In sustainability-related decisions, we often have to balance environmental, economic, and social criteria. These trade-offs are complex, and traditional methods don't always handle them well. Often, a solution that excels in one area, like cost, can overshadow poor performance in others, such as environmental impact. So the great value of one criterion overcompensates poor value in other criterion. This is problematic, especially when decisions affect long-term sustainability. So we aim to address this issue directly. Let's distinguish two perspectives. Weak sustainability allows trade-offs between different forms of capital, so economic gains can offset environmental losses. Strong sustainability, however, asserts that some resources, like ecosystems or social well-being, are non-substitutable. Our motivation was to bring this stronger perspective into mainstream decision models like TOPSIS, which until now haven't incorporated these principles effectively. Our approach is founded on the TOPSIS technique, so let's elaborate a bit on what it is. TOPSIS, technique for order, preference by similarity to ideal solution, is a widely used method for multi-criteria decision-making. It identifies the option closest to an ideal solution and farthest from a negative one. While powerful, it has a major weakness. It treats all criteria as fully compensatory, which doesn't align with strong sustainability. This brings us to the core issue: linear compensation. Suppose a project does extremely well in one area, but poorly in another. TOPSIS allows the good score to make up for the bad one. But in real-world sustainability scenarios, that kind of trade-off is not always acceptable. That's what we set out to fix. There have been attempts to address this. PROSA, SSP COPRAS, and similar methods focus on stronger sustainability modeling. However, these are often not as familiar or widely used as TOPSIS. Our goal was to enhance TOPSIS, not replace it, with a method that supports strong sustainability without compromising its structure. STOPSIS is a sustainable extension of TOPSIS. We preserve the core structure of TOPSIS, but introduce two new elements: a sustainability coefficient and a spike suppression matrix. These help reduce the impact of overly dominant criteria and ensure no single performance dimension skews the whole result. This aligns with strong sustainability principles. The two key components are the sustainability coefficient, which controls how much we reduce overcompensation, and the spike suppression matrix, which modifies the input data. Together, these prevent alternatives with extreme scores in one area from unfairly dominating the ranking. Let's discuss the algorithm of the STOPSIS method. The first step is to calculate the spike suppression matrix. We compare each criterion score to the mean and apply the sustainability coefficient. This allows us to detect and dampen the influence of outliers. It's a controlled way to balance the data set before applying classic TOPSIS. Next, we apply a threshold. For benefit criteria, we suppress only the overly high values. For cost criteria, we do the opposite. This ensures we don't penalize alternatives that are already underperforming. It's a protective measure that keeps the suppression fair. In the third step, we subtract the adjusted spike values from the original data. This reduces the overperformance effect. After these three steps, we resume with the normal TOPSIS workflow. This means STOPSIS is an enhancement, not a replacement of the original method. We then perform the classic TOPSIS steps: normalize the adjusted decision matrix, apply weights, determine ideal and negative ideal solutions, calculate the distances of each alternative to the ideal and anti-ideal solutions, compute final scores, and build the final ranking. This integration makes STOPSIS easy to implement with existing tools and workflows. To test our method, we applied it to 7 offshore wind farm projects planned in the Baltic Sea off the Polish coast. These projects come from well-known energy companies like Equinor, PGE, and Orlen. All are targeting the Słupsk Bank region. We evaluated each project using 30 criteria. These included technical, environmental, social, and economic factors, everything from installed power to CO2 reduction, job creation, and investment costs. Each criterion was given equal weight and classified as a benefit or cost criterion. Using traditional TOPSIS with no compensation suppression, A3 ranked highest, followed by A6 and A4. But we suspected this was due to some criteria having unusually high values, creating an imbalance in the rankings. That's what STOPSIS is designed to correct. Once we applied STOPSIS with SJ 0.5 and then SJ 1.0, the rankings changed. A6 moved to the top, A3 dropped. This suggests A3's original high rank came from overcompensation on a few strong criteria. STOPSIS corrected this imbalance. Here's a visual showing how compensation is reduced. For example, in criterion C1, A3 had a very high score. With SJ 0.5 and 1.0, we progressively reduce that spike. The bars show how STOPSIS reins in outliers to create a fairer playing field. When we compare the rankings across different values of SJ, we see scores remain correlated, but the rankings diverge. In fact, correlation between baseline and full STOPSIS rankings drops to 0.61. That's a significant shift, reflecting better sustainability alignment. To dig deeper, we ran a sensitivity analysis using 11 SJ values from 0 to 1. For each, we calculated new rankings. We found that alternatives like A2 and A6 benefited most from compensation reduction, while A3 gradually declined in rank. This chart shows how each project's rank changed as SJ varied. Some were stable, like A5 and A7, while others, such as A2 and A3, varied considerably. This visualization makes it clear which alternatives are more robust to linear compensation effects. Finally, we looked at the distance to the ideal and negative solutions. On this chart, top left corner is best, as it's close to positive ideal solution and far from negative ideal solution. For each alternative, we put here multiple dots as the SJ grew. Pluses denote the distinct SJ values of 0, half, and full linear compensation reduction. To summarize, STOPSIS effectively mitigates linear compensation. It adjusts rankings to better reflect sustainability goals. In our wind farm case, STOPSIS shifted the top-ranked project and revealed hidden trade-offs that TOPSIS alone would have missed. STOPSIS adds sustainability awareness to a proven decision-making method. It's especially relevant in fields like renewable energy and urban planning, where trade-offs can't always be linear. Our results show that STOPSIS is a valuable tool for sustainability-focused analysis. Going forward, we plan to explore dynamic weights and adaptive sustainability coefficients. We also want to apply STOPSIS to other domains. This work was supported by the Polish National Science Center and the Ministry of Science. Thank you for your attention.